The Iranians are threatening to wage an unimaginable war on Israel, and Israel is gearing up to make a much larger strike on Iran since the first one didn't convince them to back down. Meanwhile, the IDF is well on its way to dismantling Hezbollah, moving to the second phase of the ground operation in Lebanon. After less than 2 months of fighting, the IDF has already captured or destroyed the enormous arsenal of weapons that Hezbollah placed in villages along the border with Israel to be ready for the planned invasion of the Galilee, the northern part of Israel, while the number of rockets that Hezbollah is able to fire into Israel from further north in Lebanon has dropped to a trickle. How long will they be able to keep up even this amount of rockets is a question that everyone is asking. Even as Hezbollah is grappling with this question, there are indications of a rebellion from within its own ranks. Even as large numbers of Hamas terrorists have surrendered or been captured in Gaza, as the IDF successfully carries out its operations in Jabalia. In the meantime, talks are being renewed for the deal to release Israel's remaining hostages in Gaza, with the head of the Mossad returning from discussions in Doha, Qatar, with a new outline. We've got a lot to discuss about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel in this war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Iranian militias in Iraq and Syria, all of them under the auspices of Iran, the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. Before we begin, please take a second to find the subscribe button and click on it so that you will never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. After the Israeli attack on Iran, which was carried out in response to the Iranian ballistic missile attack on October 1st, senior officials from Tehran repeatedly threatened a powerful response and even blamed the United States for supporting Israel. Iran's representative to the United Nations Security Council said during Monday's emergency meeting that Tehran reserves the right to respond to the Israeli attack and claimed Israel's attack was a violation of international law. The United States' support for Israel encouraged it to continue its aggression in Gaza and Lebanon. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, also spoke up at the meeting, warning Iran's ambassador that if it carried out actions against Israel or the United States personnel in the region, there will be serious consequences. According to her, we will not hesitate to act in self-defense. Let there be no confusion. The United States does not want to see further escalations. We believe that this should be the end of the direct exchange of fire between Israel and Iran. In the meantime, the picture becomes clear about the scope of the Israeli attack on Iran. Sentinel satellite images reveal that a secret missile facility disguised as a space center has been destroyed. At the same time, satellite photographs analyzed by the BBC revealed that damage was also caused to a storage tank at the refinery. Other analysts who reviewed the commercially available satellite photos spoke of the pinpoint strikes on key buildings at several other facilities, indicating that Israel's intelligence agencies have deeply penetrated Iran's military organization and knew exactly where and what to hit. Back in Israel, the Political Security Cabinet held a 6.5-hour meeting during which they discussed 3 key issues, including the strike by a Hezbollah drone on the Prime Minister's private residence in Caesarea and the possibility of hitting Iran to retaliate for this attack. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to keep you updated on developments in the battle between Israel and Iran. You can help us by sharing our videos on YouTube, subscribing to this YouTube channel, and following us on social media. You can also stay up to date by visiting our website at tbnisrael.com/news to see articles and partner updates on what is happening in Israel. Switching our focus to the battle against Hezbollah, less than 2 months after the IDF crossed the border and initiated a ground incursion into Hezbollah-occupied territory in southern Lebanon, the results are visible on the ground. Recent satellite photos show how the villages adjacent to the border area from where Adwan forces were meant to launch the plan to conquer the Galilee, as Nasrallah boasted in the past, have been completely cleared of Hezbollah infrastructure. The photos show the destruction of the tunnels, bunkers, and anti-tank missiles firing positions that Hezbollah used to terrorize residents of Israel's northern communities. Hezbollah spent years and enormous amounts of money to build all this infrastructure, and now it's all gone. Sadly, the civilian buildings that ordinary people live in, worked, shopped, and went to school in, that Hezbollah used as cover for their malign activities, have also had to be destroyed. Villages, including Kila, which was adjacent to the Metula Israeli community, Mis El Jabal, which overlooks Manara, and Petach, and Yarun, which was slightly north of the Shiral, have all suffered heavy damages. Hezbollah is responsible for this destruction, and the bill for reconstruction of these villages should be sent to their masters in Tehran. The IDF Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, visited the northern border this week and met with Northern Command Generals Uri Gordin, as well as other senior officers and the command staff of Division 98. Together, they toured the network of tunnels and bunkers that Hezbollah has built in southern Lebanon shortly before it was all demolished by IDF combat engineers. Halevi said that from here they could go on a raid into the state of Israel. We caught it in time, and these infrastructures must not be rebuilt. We have been saying that for years, that Hezbollah is preparing the border for war against Israel. For the countries of the world that doubted it, for the United Nations, for UNIFIL, these testimonies are very important to understand why we are destroying what is under the ground and why we need to prevent them from building it again. On the subject of Hezbollah's rockets, missiles, and drones, which we were told that could rain down fire on Israeli communities for weeks and do massive damage to our infrastructure, this threat is also being decisively dealt with. Although Hezbollah continues to fire rockets and drones, and these weapons are doing damage and starting fires, but it's a small fraction of what we were worried they could do. I believe that most of their heavier rockets and guided missiles have already been destroyed, otherwise they would have used them by now. In any case, IDF troops have cleared the immediate threat from the border and are now moving further north to clear Hezbollah positions in a second brand of villages. The threat from Hezbollah can be more or less divided into three layers, with the first layer being the positions that they set up in the villages right next to the Israeli border. The second layer is positions that they set up further north, from which they fire rockets, drones, and anti-tank missiles directly into Israeli communities and IDF bases in the Galilee. The third layer is Hezbollah's broader organizational structure, which exists all throughout Lebanon, particularly in the Bekaa Valley and the Dahia neighborhood of southern Beirut. As I said, the IDF has already cleared this first layer and removed the immediate threat of a Hezbollah invasion of the Galilee. But this is not the strategic center of gravity in this war. Iran still exercises control over other parts of Hezbollah and is trying to bolster those parts. This can be seen in the large numbers of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps officers who have been killed and wounded by the Israeli strikes on Hezbollah positions in recent months. This is including in Syria. This is getting closer to Hezbollah's strategic weaknesses, as it relies on Iran for ammunition, money, and many of the other things that it needs to function. With the loss of the IRGC officers, including the deputy commander and many mid-level officers, the destruction of the weapons manufacturing and transfer infrastructure in Syria, and the general deterioration of the organization throughout the region, Hezbollah's ability to function is severely degraded. In addition to this, Iran is beginning to have its own serious internal conflicts which are hurting its ability to conduct this war against Israel. Ismail Khani, the commander of the Quds Force, disappeared mysteriously, and for a time he was concerned that he had been eliminated or suspected of treason. He appeared briefly at the memorial service for a Quds Force officer who had been eliminated by an Israeli airstrike, but then disappeared again and has not appeared in public since. Other Quds Force officers have also been missing for long periods of time, probably because they are being investigated for possibly being Israeli agents. The IRGC in general, and the Quds Force in particular, appear to be ongoing significant structural changes. In the meantime, the IDF continues to advance in southern Lebanon. On Monday, more evidence surfaced that Hezbollah's underground money warehouse was discovered under the El Sakal hospital in Beirut, containing tens of millions of dollars in cash and gold. IDF spokesman in Arabic, Colonel Avichai Aderi, began to circulate a video online showing what is inside that bunker, which was previously used by Hassan Nasrallah. One of the journalists who participated in the tours at the same time in that place, Sabine Yosef, uploaded the video to her X account along with the sharp criticism of the government in Lebanon, saying, "Why does the Lebanese state hesitate to send the army and the security forces to the coastal hospital to look for the $500 million and give them as aid to the displaced, or to use them for the reconstruction of the destroyed villages of Lebanon? What scares the government as Hezbollah is on the brink of collapse?" This video joins the documentation of a bunker that Aderi uploaded to his X account, which directly referred to the journalist who visited the hospital to see if what the IDF was saying about the money warehouse was true. In the video, Aderi directly addressed the journalist who participated in the tour of the El Shakal Center in Beirut, rhetorically asking them, "Were you really surprised that you did not find the entrance? What did you expect, that Hezbollah would simply put you in Nasrallah's vault?" Fortunately, our intelligence is very accurate in this information, and now I will tell you in detail what you missed. We followed the reports that were broadcasted on the Lebanese screens, and we managed to refute the lies of Hezbollah. Look at the suspicious wall again and what was hidden from you in the entrance. Now, go back to the site and find any way into this void. Through the wall, through the elevator, in the stairwell, through any way that you can imagine. There's an entrance to Nasrallah's vault, and hundreds of millions of dollars are hidden under the hospital. We call on the legal institutions of Lebanon and the Lebanese government and the media, come and see for yourself, just as we knew where Nasrallah is, where Safi al-Adin is. Go and check it yourself. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on the decline of Hezbollah and other issues relevant to the war in Lebanon. Please continue to help us spread the truth by sharing our videos on YouTube and following us on social media. More importantly, support us so that we can continue to bring you up-to-date and detailed content about what is happening in Israel by donating to us directly at tbnisrael.com/give. Every dollar will help us bring the truth to as many people as possible. Switching our focus once again to events in the Gaza Strip, where Hamas has recently made another big mistake, which the IDF is taking full advantage of to dismantle the center of military power that Hamas tried to re-establish in the city of Jabalia. Hamas had gathered as many of its remaining fighters as it could and concentrated them all in this one city in northern Gaza. The IDF responded by surrounding the place, allowing civilians to exit and screening those civilians to make sure that no Hamas fighters are allowed to hide amongst the civilians. Then, the IDF moved in to deal with Hamas terrorists inside the perimeter, eliminating many and capturing hundreds, some of whom surrendered. This included senior field commanders, men that the Shin Bet, the Israeli intelligence agency, has been searching for. The IDF was able to accomplish this despite Hamas using cruel tactics to try and prevent civilians from fleeing the area, including shooting them in the legs so they couldn't escape. But as soon as the IDF brigades surrounded the camp and news that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar had been eliminated, everything began to collapse. The residents lost their fear, and it's possible that many of the Hamas fighters lost their motivation at the same time. So, in a short period of time, close to 50,000 civilians managed to flee to designated safe zones further south. The IDF issued a statement about the tactics that Hamas used in this battle, saying that Hamas held the population as human shields for almost a week. Therefore, the evacuation of the population delayed the IDF's plans by several days. Hamas stopped civilians from evacuating, and according to testimonies, shot Palestinians in the leg who came out of shelters to flee. On the first day of the evacuation, we evacuated 6,000 people. On the second day, 20,000 people, and today already 50,000 people have left Jabalia. 600 terrorists were captured and transferred for interrogation. The operation in Jabalia is still ongoing, and the IDF commanders tell us that the Hamas tactics demonstrate a lack of training and organization. Specifically, one IDF commander said that these are not the battalions and companies that were there a year ago at the beginning of the fighting. They are on the verge of breaking. Some Hamas fighters tried to make a last stand in positions that they set up inside Kamal Adwan Hospital in Jabalia. The IDF's Brigade 460 surrounded the hospital, which led to Hamas not being able to organize before the encirclement was completed. 60 terrorists soon surrendered, and another 20 were eliminated in exchanges of fire with the IDF troops. Then, naval commandos from the 13th Fleet entered the hospital and took custody of another 60 terrorists who were trying to use the patients and the staff of the hospital as human shields. At least one of the terrorists arrested in this hospital admitted during interrogation that he had taken part in the atrocities of October 7th. It is important to point out that this raid on the Kamal Adwan Hospital in Jabalia was not carried out in random way. Careful intelligence work was done prior to the raid, and this resulted in a conclusion that Hamas was using the hospital as a command center for coordinating military activities. In addition to this, Hamas was using ambulances to move its operatives and weapons. That is why the IDF raided this hospital, and it is also important to point out that civilians were allowed to leave the facility before the IDF moved in. Before we switch our focus to the negotiations in Doha, Qatar, that are meant to reach a deal to release the Israeli remaining hostages from Gaza, we need to point out that the IDF has prepared the ground for the political echelon to conduct these negotiations. Despite all the casualties and sacrifices, we can say that Israel is currently in a positive moment of tactical achievements. In about 2 months, Israel eliminated Hassan Nasrallah, which in one moment took away a large pillar of Hezbollah's power both in Lebanon and in the entire Middle East. Most of the rest of Hezbollah's senior leadership has also been removed from the battlefield, along with many mid-level officers and field commanders. The senior leadership of Hamas has also been annihilated, culminating in the elimination of Yahya Sinwar. Amidst all of this, the IDF has fortified its positions along the Philadelphia and the Netzer corridors in the Gaza Strip, which give Israel the ability to block Hamas without stationing large numbers of troops inside the Gaza Strip. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on what is happening in Gaza. Keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. Take a minute to find the subscribe button and press on it so that together we can give the truth its rightful place. Now moving on to the negotiations in Doha, Qatar, where CIA Director Bill Burns and Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim El Thani met with Mossad Chief Dedi Barnea on Monday. The topic of the discussion was a new set of proposals for a deal that would see the return of some of Israel's remaining hostages, including a 28-day ceasefire and the release of several dozen Palestinian security prisoners from Israeli prisons. Senior Israeli and American officials hope that a partial deal may break through the impasse of the past months in the negotiations on the hostage deal and the ceasefire, start negotiations on a comprehensive deal, improve the humanitarian conditions in Gaza, and release some of the hostages held in the Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday that he would only agree to a partial deal and not to a deal that would include ending the war. The Prime Minister's office said in a statement that the parties discussed a new outline that combines previous proposals and also takes into account the main issues and recent developments in the region. The Qatari and the Egyptian mediators are expected to meet with senior Hamas officials in the coming days to discuss the new outline, while Burns is expected to travel to Cairo later this week to discuss the issue with the new Egyptian intelligence chief, Hassan Rashad. At the same time in Israel, the Knesset approved by a huge majority an amendment to the law saying that UNRA activities in Israel will be stopped. According to the law, an agreement from 1967 that allowed UNRWA, the United Nations Refugee Agency, to work in Israel will be cancelled and its activities in this country will cease. This new law was prompted by revelations that UNRWA has become deeply involved with Hamas, and some of its employees are even suspected of directly participating in the October 7th atrocities. However, the law has not been finalized yet, and officials in Israel's foreign ministry have warned that taking this step could lead to Israel being suspended from the United Nations, since this is a violation of the organization's charter. The foreign ministers of Canada, Australia, France, Germany, Japan, South Korea, and Great Britain issued a joint statement this week calling on Israel to stop the legislation, expressing grave concern, especially in light of the humanitarian situation in Gaza. US State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said that Washington has made it clear to Israel that it is very concerned about the legislation that could ban the agency's activities in the Gaza Strip because it plays a role in providing irreplaceable humanitarian aid. The humanitarian aid does not reach the residents of Jabalia, where the Israeli IDF has increased its activities, and the United States will not agree to that. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wrote on the X account of the Israeli Prime Minister in English that UNRWA employees who are involved in terrorist acts against Israel should bear responsibility. Since preventing a humanitarian crisis is essential, humanitarian aid must remain available in Gaza, now and in the future. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on what is happening regards this law and all other developments relevant to the battle against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. We'll conclude today's report by telling you about a new Israeli development technology which looks like something out of a science fiction movie, the ground laser interception system called Iron Beam in English, and in Hebrew, the Magen Or. It has been tested and has already proven several times its ability to intercept rockets and short-range aerial threats. As a result, the PAAT and the Ministry of Defense came to a conclusion that the system has reached operational capability, which justifies its deployment nationwide as a complement and reinforcement to the Iron Dome anti-rocket defense systems. In order to move from the stage of operational experiments and tests, which are carried out using individual Magen Or systems, to the stage of a wide operational deployment of dozens of such systems, the Ministry of Defense, the American government, and the defense industries need to invest billions of shekels in establishing production lines for this advanced and very complicated laser interception system. Currently, only the prototype has been built, and on Monday, the Ministry of Defense announced a 2 billion shekel order to Rafael, to the Advanced Defense System, and Elbit Systems, two of Israel's largest defense manufacturing corporations, to build additional units. That sounds like a lot of money, but the system costs $2 per interception as compared to the Iron Dome system, which uses interceptor missiles which cost around $100,000 each. So, in the long run, it's cheaper for the IDF to build the Iron Beam systems than to continue using the Iron Dome. That having been said, Iron Beam has some serious limitations. It is still only effective at relatively short ranges, and it doesn't work very well when it's raining or overcast. However, just as Iron Dome has been improved with time and is now much more effective than it was in the early days of its deployment by the IDF, we can expect that Iron Beam will also improve its performance with time. It is expected to begin serial production by the end of 2025 and will be deployed to defend Israeli cities shortly thereafter. Here at TBN Israel, we are looking forward to being there to report on this system when it becomes fully operational. In the meantime, we ask you to continue helping us by sharing our videos on YouTube, subscribing to this YouTube channel, and following us on social media. I want to conclude by paying my last respects to a hero who gave his life in the defense of Israel. Major Guy Yaakov Natsri, 25 years of age, from Atlit, a company commander in the 401st Brigade, was wounded 9 days ago in the Gaza Strip and died of his wounds on Monday. Please pray for the peace of the IDF soldiers. Pray for the families of those wounded soldiers who risk everything to defend all of us. Pray for the hostages in Gaza to be reunited with their loved ones back at home. Pray for all the citizens that are affected by this conflict because of these terrorist organizations. If it's citizens in Lebanon, if it's Palestinian residents in the Gaza Strip, or the people of Israel. Let's pray for peace in this region, and most importantly, let's unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. And God will win this war.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.